Hey guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica. I'm your host. You can follow me on Twitter at JustinoTweets and at SheKnowsArsenal. You can also follow me on Instagram at JustinoGram and on TikTok at JustJustino. Welcome to another show. Today we're going to be doing a pretty long match review for our game against Liverpool, where we won. We were triumphant 3-2. And what a there was so many big moments in this game, whether it was the big decisions from the referee to, just the goals. And I thought it was a high quality match. I thought both teams played well in moments. And I think, this is the type of game that Arsenal should be able to put out there against a top four team. Like, this was the best performance that I've seen from an Arsenal team in a long time against a top team. And don't get it twisted, like, Liverpool are still a really good team. Their metrics in terms of how they attack is pretty much the same. They're still a really good attacking side. It's just they have some issues in midfield and obviously some issues at the back. And so we spoke about this in the preview that the biggest difference now was that they have a defense that we could get at, and we have an attack that could actually cause them some threat. And so it was really important for Arsenal when they got those moments to take them. And in the very first minute, we took our chance. And it was inevitable that Liverpool were going to score goals. I do think that Arsenal this season have been more susceptible to giving up goals than maybe the last two seasons, because we're a lot more open and there's some mistakes being made, and so we can also talk about that too, because I know some people really want to get into those conversations around why are we giving up, you know soft goals, whatever. So they were always going to score. They were always going to score goals, and I think that's why a lot of people predicted a high scoring draw or a 3-2 win to Arsenal, and that was exactly what it was. And in these big clashes, we've seen it over the years with Manchester City and Liverpool, that often they are high scoring. Often both teams do go for it and there's goals on either side, and it's really exciting, and I'm just glad that Arsenal were a part of it this time, because this has been a long time coming. It's been a long time coming where we go up against one of the giants and we give them a difficult time. And I had my opinions about the game during it, and I had my opinions about the game after I rewatched it. And they were a little bit different. And you guys know me. If I feel like I got things wrong, I will definitely address them. And yeah, we're definitely going to address those, because on rewatch, without all the emotion, I think we were better than what I gave us credit for. I think the emotion of wanting to get that second goal and feeling a little bit rattled by um Liverpool equalizing, my opinion on the first half might have been too harsh, but I do think there were some things that I said that were actually true. And so we'll go through all of those things. There's 87 of you guys in here already. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the chat what you guys are thinking and feeling about the game. And we're going to go through everything: Gabrielle handball, Trent's injury, Jesus' penalty, the Henderson issue, who won the tactical battle, how the game went, big performances from Martinelli, Thomas Partey, Tomiyasu, Ben White, and maybe some things we can talk about in regards to Gabrielle and Odegaard. And we'll also touch very briefly on the Aubameyang drama. So make sure you guys are getting stuck in. iGamer says, yeah, truth, I'm good. You guys are talking to each other. EK says, everyone is talking about the decisions that went against Liverpool, but for the first goal, Nunez was offsides when Trent played a clip ball over the top, which Gabrielle got a touch on the ball. Yeah, it's interesting. That one, I thought that because Gabrielle touched that was the touch, and then he was onside for that. So I'm not quite sure. I have to go back and look at that again. But ultimately, for me, you guys know I'm a big advocate of not looking too deep into the refereeing decisions, because unless we're gonna all advocate for equality, and consistency, then it doesn't really hold water for me when we only complain when it goes against us. Because you have humans on VAR, you have humans refereeing the game. There's always going to be human errors. There's always going to be subjectivity involved. There's never going to be a way where everybody sees everything exactly the same. So when that happens, some things go for you and some things don't. And so I can't be excited when things go our way. Like we'll talk about today, I think some things went our way. Um and then only cry about it when it goes against. And I think even like Liverpool fans have to be real. Like they're only complaining about it because it went against them. They didn't speak up on any of the bad calls that have happened this season and only spoke up now. And so that's why it's not really holding water because they're not even bad calls. And that's why we'll talk about it because they're not big calls. And if you understand the rules, then you'll see why and understand how VAR and these things work. Then you won't get so worked up about this shit. iGamer says, Jess, I'm still not over your 2-2 draw prediction. I was close. I was close. I was close. I don't think that was that's a bad prediction, because it felt like both teams had, good moments. It was 2-2 for a long time, and then we got a penalty. So for me, I feel like that was a pretty good prediction. Nashville says, equality is overrated. I will always complain when calls go against me and cheer when they go for me. Fair enough. High Tech J says, we got big team calls. Liverpool used to get them against us, so I don't care. Yeah, and that's the thing. It makes me cringe when I see like Arsenal fans like with tons of threads and still photos and stuff of all the things that went against us. When I think a lot of those times when you do a lot of that, it's because deep down your team didn't play well enough. And I think a lot of Liverpool fans, if they were honest with themselves, they can probably just say that we weren't good enough and Arsenal played well enough to win that game. And even if you say, something like it was a soft pen, saying it's a soft pen is basically just saying it was a penalty and that it was a subjective decision and it didn't go your way. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, which is the nature of the beast when you have humans refereeing games. Michael says, where was the same energy for the Mane elbow? I'm so glad he wasn't there elbowing the shit out of us. I'm so happy about that because I just feel like he has that big game, big player mentality, and some of that they missed yesterday as well. Zach 10 says, I think Saliba can get to the next level if he has an experienced and calm center back next to him. Look at his lack of awareness for the Firmino goal. So there's actually at least 2 reasons to upgrade on Gabby. We will talk about that. Absalat says, hi, Jess. I love your show. Congrats to us on the win. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here. It's always nice to know when people like your content because people are really loud when they want to tell you that they hate it. So thank you. The Truth Sets Free says, congrats on 13K. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Onwards and upwards. Let's try to get to 20K by the end of the season. So let's get into the nitty gritty. So how the game went. I think that's kind of how I want to start this out. How did the game go? How did you see the game? Did you see it like I saw it? And I think this is where watching the game with emotion and watching the game without emotion gives you, you can kind of see where you may have gotten things wrong and where you didn't. But Arteta, he 100% won the tactical battle. And one of the biggest calls that he could have made was not playing Kieran Tierney, who has been playing so well, so well, and was unlucky not to start. Tomiyasu starts, and there was a lot of people that were, oh, I'm not sure. Oh, I'm not sure. And if you weren't sure, I get you. I feel you, because Tierney's playing well. He's a natural left back, and Tomiyasu hasn't really started a lot of games, and he's a right back, So, but we also know that Tomiyasu is our best one-on-one defender, and he's also can play with both feet. So we could see what the plan was there was to shut down Mohamed Salah and being able to shut him down, cutting onto his left and wreaking havoc, and also cutting out those crossfield balls. Liverpool loved to switch the play over to Mohamed Salah and catch you out. And Andy Robertson does it so well. Simicast is not as good at it, but you know what they do. They love to do those big switches into the space. And having somebody like Tomiyasu there completely nullified that. And I said this on the Football Terrace yesterday that Mikel Arteta has been criticized a lot about how he goes into big games and the changes that he makes and the changes that he doesn't make. Substitutions, who he picks, things like that, how he manages the game while it's happening. And I think as loud as your criticism is, your praise needs to be just as loud. And he outclassed Klopp. Klopp made some decisions and some changes to try to get over on us. Some of those worked, some of them didn't. Arteta's worked, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. And individually, I thought Tomiyasu had an excellent game, an excellent game. No, he's not gonna bomb up and down the sideline. No, he's not going to be a goal scorer, but what he is gonna give you is that solidity. He's a tall, physical athlete that can defend and is technically brilliant, and so, for me, that was 100% the right call, and I think that's what started off the game so well is because when they started trying to do those cross-field balls in the first half, they weren't getting any joy from it, and they had to change the way that they were trying to get in behind our left-hand side. Um, so for me, those first couple of minutes, I thought, obviously we scored the goal and it's a really, really good goal, you guys. I mean, knowing that Arsenal can be a possession-based team and also a counter-attacking team at the same time is something that we've spoken about on She Knows Arsenal for a year, is that we're not just one type of team. When we know we're coming up against a team that likes to have a lot of possession, we will let you have the possession, but just know that we have the type of players that can really hurt you on the counter. And that's exactly what we did in that goal. I thought Saka to Odegaard, I thought Odegaard's pass for Gabrielle Martinelli was excellent. It was probably his best pass all season, and we started off the game so well in that first minute. And I thought for the first 15 minutes, we were dominant when on rewatch. On rewatch, I thought we were dominant. When I was watching it in the moment, I did feel like you need a second goal, you need a second goal. So those first 15 minutes, we were popping it around. We looked comfortable. We looked confident. We looked dangerous every time we went forward. And it wasn't really until the 20th minute to about the time that Nunez scored in like the 35th minute I thought that it was more even. It was more even. I thought we let Thiago come into the game a little bit more. And we know Thiago, if you give him time and space, he can ping the ball like nobody's business. And he was pretty much a one man midfield for Liverpool for that amount of time. For about 30 minutes or so, he was causing us problems. And they were also finding joy with Trent just popping these balls in behind Gabrielle and putting pressure on him to see if he could handle it. And so it was creaky. It was creaky. I thought it was going back and forth. And I think in that time, what was frustrating me is that I thought Liverpool were winning the midfield battle a little bit with Thiago having so much space because Odegaard and Thiago are a mismatch. And we didn't see enough of Xhaka, and Thomas Partey was kind of tucked in a little bit more further back into the back line. Now, that might have been what Arteta had told them to do, is that I don't want you pressing high. I don't want you so close to them because they will hurt you in behind. We will give them the space in front of us and limit the types of chances that they can create and limit the space in behind. And that's kind of what it felt like we were trying to do. But I do think we still gave Thiago a little bit too much time to ping it around, to have time to look up and see what he wanted to do. And eventually they got in behind us, and I think it was Trent Alexander-Arnold hit a very ominous, hopeful ball in behind Tomiyasu into that space in between Tomiyasu and Gabrielle. Gabrielle tries to clear the ball out. I think he panics a little bit. He touches the ball, and then Luis Diaz takes it, crosses it in. Excellent cross. Darwin Nunez, 1-1. And that just also shows that Liverpool are the type of team that can create nothing and then create something out of nothing. And they didn't have very many chances in this game, but the chances that they got, they put away. Like they were very, very clinical. And there was a lot of not negativity, but I would say a lot of like, oh, Gabrielle again, he made another mistake. Oh my gosh, he's not good enough, this and that. And I do think we have to have a conversation about Gabrielle because he's being targeted. He's being targeted. When you rewatch it, they tried to get in behind him with that hopeful ball just in behind, just popping it behind him and making him face his goal. They did it 4 times, and that's a lot in one half. And they didn't really try to go on Saliba's side, and I think that says a lot. And so I think we managed the game okay, but in those sleepy moments where we were kind of not getting close enough and kind of defending, but not really. They kind of found that moment. Gabrielle panics and they equalize. Now, from that moment to the end of the half, I think that it was even pretty much. Like we were still pinging it around. We still looked confident. We still looked fine. And they were searching for the next goal, but they really didn't have it. And at the end of the half, we know that they get a free kick off of Odegaard pulling, I think it was Jota down. They had some nice intricate play off of the back of one of our attacks. Odegaard pulls him down. They have a free kick. They try to hit it in behind. I think Partey heads it down. Gabriel Jesus, who I thought work rate was absolutely insane in this game, um, avoids the tackle, and then we go on a counterattack with Martinelli. Martinelli tears down that side. It was 3 on 3, and for some reason, Gabrielle is up there, and I think he's trying to make up for his mistake. I think that's we know that of Gabrielle, when he makes a mistake, he wants to make it up. Gabrielle Martinelli, Odegaard was also up there, and Martinelli puts it across with his right foot. Gabrielle steps over it, and Saka's there on the back post, 2-1 to Arsenal going into the half. And so, yeah, I think ultimately where I thought it was a non-existent kind of lackadaisical performance from our midfield, on rewatch, it was more just we were giving them that space, but I think that we were being a little bit too lackadaisical, and because Odegaard couldn't get close to Thiago, they started gaining a little bit of momentum, and they popped it around our midfielders and found the space in behind, and so it wasn't as bad as I thought, but I do think that Thomas Partey actually was a lot better than what I thought, but in that first half, Odegaard and Xhaka for me were a little bit, after the goal, a little bit quiet, especially when it came to second balls and, you know, winning the ball and getting stuck in. I didn't think that they were up to it as I would have wanted. So that's my take on it. Lynn says Arteta was the man of the match. He played a master stroke playing Tommy at left back. Blaze, and I agree with that, Lynn. Blaze says, I think Gabrielle needs to relax and believe in himself. He is a good player, but it seems like he lacks the confidence to play very well. He's also somebody that looks at social media a lot. We know that. He's somebody that is very in tune with what the Arsenal fan base is saying about him, and maybe he is catching wind of some of this. And I'm not saying that Arsenal fans should not say anything about Gabrielle because of this, but what I am saying is that he may be seeing that people are not feeling confident with him, and it's rattling him a little bit. Um, I would say that he's been out of form mostly since January of last season. And so where you can name so many moments where he could have just done better. And so and you guys know I rate Gabrielle really highly, and I just think maybe he needs a rest. You know, maybe he just needs to come out of the firing line because we don't want him to become Trent. When you look at Trent, you look at somebody that probably should have been taken out of the firing line a long time ago. That they probably should have played Gomez or whoever they had. Don't try to play him out of form into form because the guy is completely like he's finished. And so not forever, but just right now, he just needs to come out of the firing line. And I think that's something we should probably consider for Gabrielle because it's starting to become a game thing. Like every game, there's something that you can point to where you're like, oh, wish he would have done a little bit better. Yeah. So let's see what you guys are saying. Lynn says, afternoon, Jess, and all the Gooners. Dev M says, Gabrielle doesn't have a settled left back partner like Saliba has on the right. I think the lack of chemistry with the left back is causing more issues for him. That's a good point. You know, I pointed that out on one of the last shows that I felt like we also don't take it into consideration how much work Gabrielle has to do. Our left side is really our attacking side. It's the side where we want to get it over there to Martinelli so he can do what he does best. And so he tends to be left alone there, especially when he plays with like Zinchenko and Tierney in particular. Like he's just there by himself and he has to cover left back and left center back and also cover the center. So it's kind of like I do think that sometimes we can be a little bit harsh, but equally I think that there's an argument now to maybe start looking towards giving him a little bit of break. Like in the Europa League, does he have to play? You know, can we play somebody else? Just to so that he doesn't have to consistently be thinking. And so, yeah, but I do understand that aspect, and I do think people need to take that into consideration. Josh says rivals have made up their excuse to discredit our performance. I love it. Let's see. Remy says, "You are wrong. Liverpool went through Saliba side. Diaz did that. What are you comment about?" Um, no, you're wrong. So the goal that you guys score, or the goal that Liverpool scored, um, the first one in the first half, that was in behind Gabrielle, and Diaz crossed it over to to Darwin Nunez through the middle. And so in that half, the amount of times that Liverpool tried to switch the ball from the left-hand side to the right-hand side to try to get it to Salah, and the amount of times that Trent Alexander-Arnold and Jordan Henderson and Thiago tried to hit it in behind Tomiyasu and Gabrielle would say to me that you guys targeted that side, and I know exactly what I'm talking about. I rewatched the game. I am not dumb. So, no, the second goal that Liverpool scored, which we haven't even gotten to because that's not what we're talking about, did come off of that side. But in the majority of the first half, the goal from Liverpool was to get in behind Tomiyasu and Gabrielle, either from clip balls from their right fullback area or from big switches from left to right to Mohamed Salah. Thank you and good night. Now, so Ollie A says the second goal was on Saliba's side, Jess. Exactly. But we're talking about in the first half, the majority of their attacks came on that side. You guys, I know exactly what I'm talking about. Just because they scored one goal and had one attack on that side doesn't mean that they weren't really trying to target that side. So there you go. Khalid says, I have to say, Jess, I'm very disappointed with the way that Terry spoke about Christianity on his channel, and I'm surprised no one said anything about it. Um, I hear what you're saying, and, you know, if that hurt you and, disappointed you and offended you in any way, I apologize on behalf of, the football terrorists and Terry. Um, on that channel, sometimes, we say things that we don't think are gonna hurt people's feelings, and that's not right, and so on behalf of everybody there, I do apologize. And it's not I'm not a big talker. I don't like talking about religion or anything like that because I feel like it's something that is just not in my nature. And so, I apologize that I didn't speak up. And if you were hoping that I did, I'm sorry that I let you down. I'm sorry that that hurt your feelings or offended you in any way. Um, let's see. Richie Rabbit says, I felt sorry for you being there at all, Jess. Well, I mean, I love being on the football terrace, you guys. Like, sometimes things are said and it's not meant in a bad way. And that doesn't mean that we shouldn't apologize for the things that we say and, how we make people feel. And Terry, I know, didn't mean anything about it or mean anything by it. But, you know, equally, if we hurt your feelings, I really do, apologize for that. That's not right, and it's unfortunate. I'm really sorry about that. So, let's see. Um, so yeah, going back into the Arsenal conversation. So you guys, we were talking about the first half. If you don't agree with me that a lot of the attacks that Liverpool were trying to do in the first half, which is what we're talking about, came in behind Tomiyasu and in that channel between him and Gabrielle, that's fine. But from my vantage point, that's exactly what they targeted to do in the second half. They tried to do something different, but it didn't work. So yeah. Uh, let's see. Hakum. Okay, so you guys, look, the whole thing with like Terry and what he said, I'll definitely talk to him about it. But I know he didn't mean anything by it, and I'm sure he'll apologize himself when I talk to him. But on this show, just because it's not something that I feel comfortable talking about, and I do apologize for if anybody was offended. I would love to just have a footballing conversation with you guys. If you want to speak further about it, feel free to DM me, and we can talk about it there. But right now, I do want to get through the show. So I really do apologize for that, you guys. So yeah, now that was pretty much the first half in a nutshell for me. It wasn't as bad as I thought. It was kind of even, but we were devastating on the counterattack. and they were really clinical with the one chance that they got. They tried to target that space in between Tomiyasu and Gabrielle, and they finally got through. And the one thing that we didn't talk about, because I actually want to talk about all the big moments together. So we won't talk about the Gabrielle handball and stuff. We'll talk about all that in like one section by itself. But I just want to go through the game and kind of talk about individual performances and things like that. So now, um, second half. I thought we were a lot better in the second half. Watching the second half, I was a lot more like, whew, I think we look good. We're popping the ball around. We're doing our thing, 2-1. We're looking for the third goal. I thought Xhaka was a lot more involved in the second half on the ball. I thought Thomas Partey really lifted his levels. And again, rewatching it, you guys, I thought he wasn't great in the first half. He's actually a lot better than I thought. And he was even better in the second half. So I will concede that I got that one wrong. But, you know, we didn't really close out the game. And in one of those sleepy moments where we were just kind of like, we were defending, but we really kind of weren't. And they were just kind of passing it around. And remember when they did that to us at home last season, where Thiago was just kind of chilling with the ball. And then all of a sudden he was behind, like the ball was in behind us and Jota just kicked in the back of the net. That's kind of how I felt when Firmino scored. Like it was very much like, I didn't feel any, like, I didn't feel any, like, "Oh, they're about to score, oh, they're about to score," but I looked up and Firmino had kicked it in the back of the net. And rewatching that, they were just kinda passing it around, and I thought that the pass that Jordan Henderson, I thought that he was gonna do was the pass all the way out to the left-hand side, and I don't know if that was Tsimikas or not, but he didn't make that pass, and I think that's might have been what Saliba thought he was gonna do, and then he kind of came, in and, like, rushed out, and then they passed it into Firmino into that pocket in behind, and, um, they were they scored that second goal, and it was like, I cannot believe that they scored that second goal because it happened so quickly, and that's the other thing about it is, like, they can score at any moment. They're so clinical and they know each other so well and they know their system going forward so well. And I think that's the thing about Liverpool is that I don't want to discredit them too much because when I watched the game, I did think they had really good moments. And I think that speaks to how good we were, that we could go toe to toe with them, but they were always going to score. And that second goal just came so like, not against the run of play per se, but it was in one of those sleepy moments where you didn't really feel like they were gonna score, and so, I thought Saliba was maybe culpable for that goal, if you could have put it on anybody, but it was just one of those. But what I did like was that it didn't feel like when we got scored on, or scored against, that we were gonna go back into our shell and capitulate. We immediately came right back down, and I think from that moment on, we were pretty dominant. There were so many moments where we were crossing the ball in and we looked dangerous on the counter that I just knew that third goal would come at some point, and especially after Klopp kind of waved the white flag and he took out Salah and took out Matip and replaced them with Konate and Fabinho. He started to go for the draw. I was like, "This is exactly when we could go and score," and I just felt it was coming at that point. I don't know if you guys felt the same way, but I did feel like it would feel like it was coming. Um, let's see. You guys, I'm really sorry, but, like, let's try to, like, not, be offensive in the comments. Like, I really am not liking that at all. Let's have a footballing conversation, okay? Like, let's just keep it clean, you know? If you guys wanna talk about this stuff, please feel free to DM me, but let's not, maybe do it in the chat. I don't think it's the right place. Um, and Edit says Firmino always scores against us. At least it wasn't Jota this time. Shaheen says Ramsdale could have closed the angle sooner, maybe, but I also think mostly when I looked at it, I saw Saliba out of his position. Ali A says we are out of form and we can have good moments in the game, but we aren't consistent, and that is our problem. We have injuries, and Klopp has lost the plot this season. Um, I hear that. Ayanle says we were better in the second half because Partey improved so much. Xhaka was immense. As for Odegaard, I'll stay quiet, but combative games, he can't hack it. Ayanle, I'm glad you said this because I did feel like people were acting like that didn't happen, and it did. Like Partey's levels went up so much in that second half. Xhaka, I thought on the ball got a lot better in the second half as well. But Odegaard for me in the tackle for second balls, third balls, is weak. And I also thought there were moments where he could have shot and he didn't. And then the one moment where he could have slipped it into Saka, he shot and it was like a weak shot. And so, yeah, I thought he was kind of disappointing in this game from that perspective. And beyond the assist, I thought Odegaard, like, struggled mostly, especially when we didn't have possession, and there were some like, long periods, like 10, 15 minutes where we didn't have possession, and if he had just been a little bit stronger, a little bit faster, a little bit more, um like you said, combative, we might have been able to get more possession in those moments. And so it did happen, even though people want to act like it didn't. Because if you say anything about a player when we win, you hate them and you're abusing them, but it's not true. Like, not everybody had a 10 out of 10 game. I think Odegaard did not have a 10 out of 10 game, even though he had the assist, if that makes sense. There were just moments where I thought, fuck, I need you to just be a little bit more tough, and I know you can do it. Crispy Rice says, I believe in Odegaard. I think Arteta will get the best out of him in the end. I believe in him as well. Let's see. Ivy says, hey everyone, finally got to watch a live stream of yours. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Where it says, stop praising your first 11 if you have not taken into consideration injury tax. This isn't a regular Premier League season. World-class congestion. Your bench is not good enough in depth. It's not good enough for what? Like, it's not good enough for what? What are you saying? You're coming in here telling us not to praise our first 11. Is it because you're rattled? Because Arsenal fans are starting to believe that we can do something more than top four? Like, what are you rattled about? If you know that we're not going to make it to the end and everything is going to fall apart, then why are you here? Don't be praising your first 11. You guys are so weird coming in here with that nonsense. It's just nonsense, you guys. Let's see. Chikan says, I wonder if Odegaard became reserved on his tackles because he was on a booking. Potentially, he did get that booking at the end of the first half, but I thought he was very, very soft in the first half, like before that. Remember, that came right before we scored the second goal. And so I just found him to be frustrating because I was like, if you could just put a little bit of more stank on it, you might have got the ball. So yeah, that's all it really is. iGamer says apparently injuries don't happen to all teams. They only happen to us, apparently. Larry says, please don't like your team. Exactly. That's exactly what it feels like. It's like, why are you guys saying good things about your team? It's because they're good and they're winning games. So, like, why wouldn't we? Like, it's so strange. Let's see. Jay Walker says, is O playing with an injury? I don't know. Maybe he is. We have no idea. But on face value, I think this was not an amazing game for Odegaard. He wasn't as bad as maybe I felt like he was, but I know other people felt the same, you know? Um, Cal says Odegaard should be encouraged to improve. If you're saying that maybe the way that I'm saying it is not encouraging enough and maybe it's too negative, fair enough. But, you know, I would just say in general, from like just a general perspective, is fans have been criticizing players for years. The only difference now is that it's done online. It's not only done in a pub or in the privacy of your own home or whatever like that. And I think players understand that fans are going to have opinions on how they play. And as long as we're not abusive towards them and going over the line, and we all are smart people, we understand the difference between criticism and abuse, it should be okay. I definitely encourage Odegaard. Next game, I'm going to still love Odegaard. I love him. I think he's going to be amazing for us. He already has been. I back him a lot. But when I don't think he's done the right thing or I feel like he wasn't good in a game, I feel like saying it isn't innately negative or detrimental to the team. These are strong men. Let's give them give them some credit. And not think that, like, if we just say, like, he didn't play well in certain moments, that's gonna ruin him or whatever. I do think that we're very sensitive now to any sort of criticism around players. I think some of the things that people are saying about Trent is going too far. Some of the things that have been said about Harry Maguire is going too far. But if you're saying that they're having bad games, that's not too far. And it's just an opinion, and if it's a shit opinion, they don't care what I have to say. They know what if they're doing what the manager is saying that they should do and they feel good about their performance, then why they give a fuck about what I'm saying? Let's see. Jack Bomber says Ben White at right back, absolutely superb again. He was. Chris Smith says, "Do you think Odegaard feels a bit of imposter syndrome as he appears? It appears that Xhaka is the real captain of the team and is the main one leading it." Interesting. Interesting. I mean, I think if we say anything about this, it's purely speculation because we're not there. We're not behind the scenes. We're not in their heads. We're not around them enough to know. It does feel like Jacques is the captain and Jesus is the vice captain and Odegaard is I don't know what he is, but that's how it feels from the outside. I don't know if he's feeling imposter syndrome. I would just say that most games Odegaard plays amazing. And there's just some games in particular when we play against certain types of teams where I feel like he's very easily nullified. And it's something that worries me as we start to like get better and play better teams and things like that. But again, we'll go away from home to Leeds and he'll have an amazing, performance. And I won't even be thinking about this. So I don't know if I want to project that far into it, if I think that he's having imposter syndrome or anything like that. But he's quieter and he leads by example. And you need different types of leaders in the team. And I think that's more than fine for Arsenal at the moment. Graham Caldwell says, I think that's where we've improved this season. If Odegaard isn't always visible, then it shows others can step up. We are not relying on one player every game to get us goals or assists. Exactly. And I think that's where, like, the best thing about Arsenal right now, like you said, is that players that needed to have 10 out of 10 games before don't necessarily have to because the other players can carry them a little bit. And I do think that in a lot of the moments in this game, Martinelli and Saka and Jesus carried us a bit in terms of getting us up the pitch, getting us into dangerous areas, making sure we carried a threat. And they were just really, really good in this game. I mean, I don't the performances from those three. When's the last time we've put Liverpool in under any sort of threat? So to see that was so good. And because we didn't have the ball all the time, when they got it, they had to make good use of it, and I thought that they did. We didn't score every single time we came down the pitch, but we looked freaking dangerous, and it definitely wasn't like when Spurs were attacking us and they just didn't have the right pass. We were all up and through their box. We were all up and through their box, and I think that speaks to those 3 players taking a lot of the not the burden, but they really stepped up, I thought. They really, really stepped up. Um, let's see. What else you guys are saying? What else you guys are saying? Just make sure I'm getting everything. Because again, there was a stat that went around that um how many touches did we have in their box? It was like an insane stat that was on like Sky Sports. I want to see if I can find it. I tweeted it, I think, or retweeted it potentially. Let me try to find it if I can. It's like I bookmark all these things, and all of a sudden when I'm looking for them, they're not there. It pisses me off. Sorry, guys. I'm just looking. I can't find it. I can't find it. But essentially what it said was that we had oh, here it is. Arsenal had 46 touches in Liverpool's box today, more than they had in the previous 5 Premier League meetings combined, which was 44. Liverpool have only allowed their opponents more touches in their box in one previous Premier League game under Klopp, which was 48 versus Manchester City in November of 2019. And so I think that speaks to, the threat that we had and the danger that we posed to Liverpool. We didn't, score a ton of goals or anything like that, but when we did get chances, I thought we made the most of them. The Truth Sets Free. Thank you so much for your super chat. I see it. I started. Oh, here it is. I started. It says, Jess equals brave legend. Who else deals with what you did last week and just keeps on shining? Well, to be fair, I do get, like, a fair bit of, like, abuse, in, like, DMs and stuff like that, but I know people that get it so much worse than me, and some of the things that people say is, like, so strange and so over the top for football, and I do think that those people should seek help because it's just strange, but thank you so much for, like, all of your support, everybody's support, you guys are so cool and, like and nice and stuff like that, and, I really appreciate all the kind words and stuff that you guys say, but I get it, but some people get it so much worse, and yeah, it's obviously because I'm in a position where, like, a lot of people watch my shows, it's more likely that I'll get this type of behavior, but I still don't think it's right. Some of the things that people say is, like, that's really scary. Um, Isinfolua? Sorry, I know I got that wrong, but thank you so much for your super chat. Says, "Hey Jess, what do you think of the supposed racist incident just before Saka's penalty? Apparently, Henderson made a racist comment, remarks towards Gabrielle. I have that starred. We will come back to it because we're gonna get into the big moments, but now, obviously it's 2-2 in the game. Liverpool did make those 2 subs, and I thought they were quite negative subs. I thought they spoke to Klopp basically going for the draw. I felt like the win was coming, and then, we got the penalty, which came after a series of really good crosses and a lot of pressure from Arsenal. If you saw, like, Ben White, Tomiyasu, everybody was kind of in and around the box, really pinning them in. I've never seen us do that, before to Liverpool. We were very brave, to do that, knowing what they could do on the other end. And so we finally got the penalty that I felt like was a penalty. And Saka, after everything that he's been through, he puts it away under so much pressure. And it just speaks to how much better he's just getting so much better. And the most impressive thing about Bukayo Saka is mentality and his personality for me and his maturity. And so stepping up and taking that penalty in that moment was amazing. And I knew from there we were gonna win. But yeah, at 3-2, the limbs, the reaction in the stadium, you could just feel it. We were celebrating in the studio, and it was an amazing moment, and, yeah, I know everybody felt it. So, at 3-2, obviously Liverpool, they have some little bit of chances, but we win the game, and then there's the moment at the end with Henderson, and I'll start off with this one, and we'll work our way backward because I think this is important. I think this is very, very important. So, in this moment with Gabrielle and Jordan Henderson, it looked like it all kinda kicked off around the penalty. That's what it looked like to me, and, when you kinda saw the exchange, I did see a moment where Jordan Henderson kind of hit Gabrielle, not badly or anything like that, they got in each other's face, and then Jordan Henderson said something to Gabrielle. Gabrielle reacted, and a lot of people had their hands over their mouths, which for me signaled that the things that were being said were really they didn't wanna get out. The referee went right over to the dugout and spoke to or the sideline, and spoke to both managers, and then we got the, um, announcement from the FA that it was gonna be under investigation, what was said in that moment, and since then, there's been a lot of speculation, a lot of speculation, and for me, I'm very uncomfortable, um, saying that I know what those comments were without actually knowing what they are, because it could come back and we could be wrong. But a lot of people are saying that it was racially motivated or whatever Jordan Henderson said was a racial comment towards Gabrielle. And Gabrielle's reaction is so emotive and the type of reaction that you have when you've been pissed the fuck off. I'll say that. And I don't want to read too much into the faces really of everybody else standing around because you could pick certain moments and it could look like something, it could look like something else. But just looking at Gabrielle's reaction and Jordan Henderson's reaction, there was something said, and it wasn't nice, and whatever it was big enough where the FA felt like they needed to investigate it, and it doesn't look good. Like, it doesn't look good on Jordan Henderson, I have to be honest, and there's a lot of people that I feel like are saying the right things, that if it is a racial thing, that they want Jordan Henderson to, uh, have the right level of punishment attached to something of that magnitude. And I appreciate that because I do think that we tend to want to protect our own, and we're very tribalistic as football fans. And so if that was Xhaka, of course I'd want to protect him, but the most important thing is that if he did do something wrong or do something racial, towards somebody else, that we would be grown up enough to be like, yeah, you know, um, we shouldn't be backing this guy. And if I'm not, if I'm not, if I'm not mistaken, Jordan Henderson is the captain's captain. Like, he's the captain of all the captains of the Premier League, and so he's supposed to be setting an example. And if he did do something like this, which we don't know, it's not going to look good. And so I'll be interested to see what comes out and what if it is a racial comment that he made towards Gabrielle, what the punishment will be, and if they'll go through with it because of who Jordan Henderson is, how he's very highly rated and revered by the Premier League as being somebody that is an example and a very, very good person. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens with this. If you've been following the Brazilian national team over the last couple of weeks, you will know that there's been quite a few of the Brazilian national team players, the black ones, that have been racially abused, during their games, whether it's with the national team or not. And they've made a big statement on sticking together as a team and saying that they would be nowhere without these black players. And I think, you know, Gabrielle, our team, maybe even some players on the Liverpool team may band together if that were something that was investigated. So, yeah, it's not looking good, but this moment, I think, is huge. Like, I cannot stress how big it is, because you have to set a precedent with certain things, and no matter who it is, and brushing it under the rug shouldn't be tolerated if that's what it is. But again, I do feel comfortable attaching that allegation to it when we don't know anything. So again, it's just rumors. It's not anything that we know for sure. People will speculate, and that's what happens. Like, when things happen, people speculate. It is what it is. But I would be really careful about calling people, racist or whatever before we know anything. But again, you know, if it turns out that that's what happened, I would want to see the Premier League and the FA take it seriously, because that's just totally uncalled for no matter what's going on the pitch. And so, yeah, we will see what happens with that. But yeah, it's a huge moment, and I really hope that it is not that. I hope it is not that. I hope it is not that, because it's never that serious. You guys, you know me. It's never that serious, okay? Um, Lynn says Henderson should be made an example of. This cannot be accepted, especially if they are trying to cut out certain aspects of the game with the players. Um, Saksham says the FA won't do anything to English players. Hakum says just because you beat relegation fodder Wolves doesn't mean you're on job, mate. You guys are talking to each other, which is cool as long as you guys are being nice. Big White Clock says, I'll say it again. Xhaka got arrested at Heathrow Airport for racially abusing a woman. I didn't know that. If that's happened, then, if he was arrested, then he was arrested, and, he served, he had the right punishment for whatever crime he did. So that I haven't seen that. But again, like, when people do things, you have to be okay with the punishment that you get. And yeah, shit happens. People say things that they shouldn't say. Iker Casillas, you know. speaking to you, and you just have to be okay with the consequences when they come. Ikao says John Terry was not exonerated. He was punished by court and banned from the national team. So yeah, I mean, we just have to see what happens, right? Kaz says, if it is, I'm sure Gabrielle is man enough not to cry about it. And I'm Irish and I was racially abused at SCH, but I never cried about it. What the F? You just lost a sub, same old race card being used. Well, again, like I said, first of all, if you want to unsubscribe because you don't like what I said, then unsubscribe, my friend. Like, I haven't said that Jordan Henderson has done it. Gabrielle is not crying about it either, but he just made it. He made it known, and he didn't like what was said to him, and other people clearly heard it. So, saying that because you don't cry about being racially abused means that nobody else should be punished for it if they do that is kind of like not how the world works. And so that's like telling somebody, you know, I'm not even gonna go there. I'm not even gonna go there because it's not that deep and we're talking about football. But go ahead and unsubscribe. I actually invite you to because the way that you're thinking is not actually how the world works. So let me just put it this way. If you know somebody or you're with somebody and you have a domestic situation and you didn't cry about it, you know, but somebody else has the same situation, but they do go to the police and their spouse is, taken to court or whatever. Do you think that they shouldn't have cried because you didn't cry? Or they shouldn't have went to the police because you didn't go to the police? So should we all act according to your moralistic values, or should we hold people accountable for their actions regardless of how other people feel about it? I can't believe you just said that. That's terrible. That's so bad. I'm sorry. Goodbye. Lame. You guys. That's not how the world works. So, yeah. But the thing about this, you guys, though, that it's hard because we're talking about football, but the world does like football does reflect the world, and so it's hard to talk about it's hard to have these conversations without them becoming personal sometimes. And so, yeah. But this is what it is. We'll see what happens with this. So now the next thing that we want to talk about is obviously the penalty that was called for Jesus. And so the interesting about this is now that it's soft and all this kind of stuff. And I'll just pull this up here because we'll talk about both of these. Um, so a lot of people are complaining that, just speaking about Gabriel Jesus and the Thiago foul, is that it was a soft penalty. Dermot Gallagher said it was a soft penalty. But just by saying that it was a soft penalty, you are actually admitting that it was a penalty. What Dermot Gallagher said, and honestly, what every single replay shows you, is that not only did Thiago not get the ball, but he made contact with Gabriel Jesus. And he also had to go through Gabriel Jesus to get the ball. So by doing that alone, he gave the referee a decision to make. Now, depending on what referee you have, the subjective nature of looking at these types of situations, obviously the threshold for whether or not that is a foul or not, or whether or not it's a penalty, it will differ based on what referee you have. So I get that in other games we've seen it given, and other games we have not seen it given. But by nature, because he did not make contact with the ball, but he did make contact with Gabriel Jesus, it was a foul. And if he had done that out on the pitch, outside of the box, nobody would be saying that. But because we're in the box, all of a sudden we want to really look at it because penalties should be harder to get. But that's just the nature of the game, is that every referee will have a different threshold. Even though the threshold has lifted, everybody's threshold is going to be different for what's too much force and what is not. So just by the nature of you saying it's a soft penalty, you have agreed that it's a penalty, but because you have seen it not given or not given in other places, you feel like because it's gone against you this time, it should not be a penalty. What you should be saying is that you want more consistency. You want more consistency. And really, I just think in the penalty box, if you foul, it's a foul. You can't foul in the penalty box, and if you do that, regardless, if it would have been a foul outside of it, it's a foul inside. And that makes it difficult because obviously then the defenders can't touch people, but that's basically what it is anyway. So I get why Liverpool fans are furious. It's because they've probably seen in other instances things like that not given. But Thiago gave the referee a decision to make. And the referee made the decision. And because they could not say it was a clear and obvious error, and a clear and obvious error in this instance would be that Thiago did not touch him at all or got the ball or both. And he did not do either of those things. So it was not a clear and obvious error. It may have been soft, but a soft pen is a pen no less. And just because it went against you this time doesn't mean that it's not a rightful penalty. You need to be calling for consistency. And if you haven't been calling for consistency when it did not affect you, don't come crying now because it did. So it was a penalty whether you like it or not. We've had penalties called against us, like that all the time. And when you give the referee a decision to make, it's out of your hands, you know? And the only time it would have been called back and called, overturned is again if it was a clear and obvious error and Thiago touched him and he damn sure didn't get the ball. So that's one why that was a penalty. Sorry. Now the Gabrielle handball one. Yesterday, I mean, every single game it looked like had a handball controversy. Antonio versus Fulham, that was 100. If Rashford's goal was not a goal, then Antonio's was not a goal either because they both handballed it exactly the same. They both can be considered second phases, but Antonio's was given and Rashford's was not. So people were using that as a way to, say that it should have been called back or it should have been called whatever. It was so much inconsistency. The one that I really look at is Newcastle versus Brentford, where Dan Burn was backwards and he lifted his hand up and one of the Brentford players like headed the ball and like it hit him in the arm and then they called it a penalty. And people were saying that, well, if that was a penalty, why is this not a penalty? And what I'll say about this is that that this was not considered a penalty because of proximity. Let's not be dumb. Because here's the thing. If we switch it, right? And the proximity was far enough away where he could have gotten his hand out of the way, but his hand was not in a unnatural position. It wouldn't have been called as a penalty. So why is it when the proximity is too close where he couldn't have moved his hand, but his hand is in an unnatural position, people want it to be a penalty? It has to be both. He has to have been able to get his hand out of the way, and his hand needs to have been in an unnatural position, or he needed to be doing it on purpose. And look how close Jota is to Gabriel Magalhaes. Yes, it's an unnatural position, but because he's literally on top of him and kicking the ball into his hand, the proximity made it so that it could not be overturned. Because what would have needed to happen, again, it would have needed to be a clear and obvious error. So what that would have meant is that he didn't call the penalty and Jota was far enough away where Gabrielle could have moved his arm. But as you can see from the freaking photo, and we all were there, we all saw it, that Jota literally was right next to him. And the reason why proximity is so important is because when that wasn't a part of the rule, there were times where people were kicking the ball into people's hands and they were being called penalties. And I don't know if you guys remember this. It was around the lockdown time where defenders were complaining because they had to play with their hands behind their back because players were literally chipping the ball into their hands. And that's why the handball rule has changed and they had to have more stipulations because it's too easy to give handballs in the box. So I do agree that his hand is in an unnatural position. But because you didn't have the second part of it, you didn't have where he was far enough away where Gabriel could have put his hand down, and taken it out of the way, it was not a clear and obvious error that could be overturned. And clear and obvious error is so important because they should be going with the on-field decision. They can't be re-refereeing the game. And so I get why people are upset, but I think you're grasping for straws especially if you act like you don't know the rules. So that's it with that. I want to know what you guys think. If you guys think it was that Gabrielle's should have been a penalty and Jesus's should not have been. Um let's see. Hi Jess. I'm happy we won yesterday. It's my birthday and Arsenal made it better. Well, happy birthday to you. Amazing. I don't want to ask how old you're turning, but what are you doing for your birthday beyond watching She Knows Arsenal and having a fun time watching Arsenal win? Ultima Spell says hit the like and subscribe to the channel. Please do that. Let's see. S9 says the biggest issue we have is consistency in applying the rules. We have had soft, incorrect calls against us, and we have to take it. In this league, you win some, you lose some. It balances out. S90, that is probably the best way to put it, is because you're never going to get consistency across the board when you have different people calling the game. Subjectivity and human error is a human, like, it's just like I can be watching a game and you could be watching a game and we can both see different things. That's kind of how it goes. And so there's always going to be a little bit of difference between, or even maybe a lot, about how people analyze the game and interpret fouls and penalties and things like that. And so the best thing you could have said is you win some, you lose some. And again, if you're not willing to call it out when it goes against you or when it's not going against you, like if let's say the roles were reversed and these calls went against Arsenal, would Liverpool fans be calling for consistency? No, they wouldn't, because we only care when it happens to us. And if that's the case, then we're just win some, lose some. And for me, even as an Arsenal fan, that cringes when I watch Arsenal fans go on and on and on and on and on about conspiracies. I think that we have to remember these times, and that the penalty or the red card that Emerson got, sometimes we would not get that. Uh, Gabriel Jesus penalty, sometimes we don't get that. Like, just the game prior, I thought Gabriel Jesus should have gotten a penalty. Just the game before, and it wasn't called for something similar. So I think win some, lose some is the best way to go about it, unless you guys are willing to actually ask for consistency when it doesn't have anything to do with you. Richie Rabbit says, as long as a referee is consistent in the game, that's as good as we can hope for. Ify says, are Liverpool fans really complaining? How is the Isak goal that got disallowed against them then when they played against Newcastle? They don't care. They only care when it's going against them so that they can play victim. And most teams do it when they know that they haven't played well enough. And that's all that they're doing. That's all that they're doing right now. Because you guys know the rules. You guys know the rules. You know exactly why the handball wasn't called. It's because he was too close. Because that's exactly what happened to us with Pepe. When Pepe was standing right in front of one of the Burnley players, the reason why that wasn't called was because he was, like, the proximity was too close. And so we understand that. Like, we get it. But to act like you don't understand it because it went against you is just stupid. Yo-Yo says, think both weren't fouls personally. You think both weren't penalties? Is that what you're saying? Or fouls? Which ones are you saying, Yo-Yo? I just want to be specific. Big White Clock says VAR has proven that they cheat. Crispy Rice says the proximity rules are obscure. We need consistency. I don't think it's a pen. This is how they all should be called. Yeah, the proximity rules are obscure, but that's the reason why clear and obvious is so important, because you have to maintain the referee's ability to call the game and not to be re-refereed. And so referees, because naturally they're going to see the game different, are going to give different things, and it's going to be frustrating. And really, VAR is just there to make sure you didn't make an egregious error. And I think when you can take into account the proximity, which in some cases is obscure and sometimes it's not upheld, they could not overturn it. They couldn't overturn it because Dan Burn got called for a penalty the day before. That's just not how things work. Do you know what I mean? And so they had to go with the on-field decision, and I still think people don't understand what VAR is. Not saying you don't understand crispy rice, but when you call for consistency, you have to make sure you do it when it doesn't go for you as well. I think that's my biggest issue with it. And PTR, it's an unnatural position of the arm, but again, you don't have the second part, which is proximity, which is what you guys consistently act like you're not hearing and you're not understanding. Is that look how close Jota is to him. There's no way that Gabrielle could have gotten his arm out of the way. So again, if it was switched and the proximity was far enough, but his hand was not in an unnatural position, it wouldn't have been called. So if his arm was down here and it hit his hand, but Jota was far enough away, they wouldn't have called it. So when you switch it the other way around, you have to have both stipulations. It can't just be, well, if it's one or the other, then it's a penalty because they're connected. I don't know why this is so hard to understand. Like it doesn't make sense. But anyways, I just think some people just don't want to accept that the rules, it will never be super consistent because you have different people doing things. And they see it from different perspectives. Um, Will says the proximity rule is important as last season players were intentionally shooting up at arms to get handballs. I said that exactly. People forgot that defenders were literally like this because people were chipping the balls into their hands. It is important. So yeah, I think that was the last big one. The last thing that I want to touch on is this. I'm sorry, but this is an absolute disgrace. From Tottenham fans that are trying to make this seem like it's the same. Now, what I'll say first is that Trent on the right-hand side, looking at his ankle, that is so, so bad, and I feel bad for him because I do think he actually got injured, and that looks so gruesome. But Martinelli was crossing the ball, and it was more unfortunate than something that needed to be put into, like, a false equivalence with what Emerson did the week prior. Emerson is stupid, and again, gave the referee a decision to make because he wasn't looking at the ball, and he was high, and he was late, and there's no way he could have gotten the ball unless he went through Gabriel Martinelli. So he made his bed, and he should lie in it regardless of how you feel and how, it just is what it is. This, to try to compare the two, is an absolute disgrace and a total reach and actually pathetic. Like, it really is. It's embarrassing. And so I do feel bad for Trent because that looks terrible. And at the time, I thought that he just didn't want to play anymore. But yeah, that's terrible. But again, taking a still shot and not adding the context that Gabriel Martinelli was crossing the ball and we were in the attack and it was just unfortunate, I think it's just ridiculous. And so I just wanted to put that out there because I've been seeing a lot of this out here and it's just like cry more. Like in both games, I do feel like we did enough to win. Spurs and Liverpool, as much as people are crying about it and are upset and felt like they had opportunities and felt like they played well and they were robbed, I think if we're all honest, Arsenal did enough to win those games, and it doesn't seem like a gross negligence or anything like that. It's just you need to focus on why you didn't win the game and not being so hell-bent on refereeing decisions, and I hate when Arsenal fans do it too. So it's not me being, mean to rivals or anything like that. I freaking hate when Arsenal fans do it too, and I just think it's so annoying. And so, yeah, those are pretty much the big incidents. There were a lot of them, and it just is what it is. You know what I mean? Like, there's gonna be a day where some of these things go against us, and we just have to take it. It just is what it is. That's how the game goes. It's always been like this, by the way. Um, so yeah, for me, like, I thought on rewatch, I was really impressed from our mentality, mostly. I thought we played really well, and we had moments where we popped it around, we played through them, we looked dangerous, and I think tactically, we got it spot on, because when we played Manchester City at home last season, I thought tactically we got it right, even though we didn't execute it well. But in that game, they had quite a bit of possession, but when we were in possession, we were so direct and we attacked them. And if we had been more clinical, we probably would have ran away with that game. We did something really similar in this game, obviously with some tweaks with Tomiyasu in there and stuff like that. But I think instead of trying to go toe to toe with Liverpool and try to out-possession them, we just we had that different face. We allowed them to try to do the attack that they wanted to do and, possess the ball, but when we got it, we made real good use of it, and I thought, you know, them being able to score a goal and us to come back and they scored another goal and us to come back, it's such a it's so refreshing from what we saw last season where we just couldn't come back, we couldn't score goals, like, we were just dead if somebody scored a goal against us, and there were some big performances out there from some young players. I'm happy to hear that Martinelli is gonna sign a new deal. It looks like it's something that's gonna happen, that's being, confirmed by many different people. And Saka had an excellent game. I thought he was so dangerous, and if we can keep those 2 together for the next couple of years, we can do something similar to what Liverpool did. I do think that they are somewhat of the blueprint for us in a way because of the way that their club is run, and they're an excellent team. I still look at Liverpool and I'm like, "That is a good team." And so if we could do something similar, obviously in our own way with our own little remix on it, I think that would be amazing. And I think Martinelli and Saka give us that opportunity. I think Gabriel Jesus was amazing, in this game. He didn't score, but he led by example, and I love that about him. He always does that. I think regardless of if he gets the goals or not, he's always up for it, and he was just there, and I love him. And Ben White, Ben White, Ben White, Ben White. That was his best performance in an Arsenal kit, in an Arsenal shirt. That was such a good, well-rounded right back performance from Ben White. He was in the attack. He was defensively relentless. He was so good on the ball, so smooth. He also broke somebody off as well. Like I don't know where he's getting these 1v1 skills from either. This guy, he just he could have been salty. He could have been salty. We know that there's players in the past that would have been salty. Remember Socrates? He was mad when he was moved to right back because I think David Luiz came in. He could have done the same thing, but instead of being upset that Saliba came in, he just adapted so well to that right back role. And every game that goes by, he gets better and better and better and better. His heat map for this game, I'll show it to you guys, is insane. And I think he impressed me the most because he does things most of our players are pretty quiet, but he does things so quiet, he doesn't complain, he doesn't bitch, he doesn't do anything, he just takes care of business, and I love that about him. This is his heat map. This is his heat map. Like, he was everywhere, in the attack, in the defense, solid. That part of our defense for me is locked in. Saliba and Ben White on the right. Now we just have to figure out what's gonna happen on the left. And I think Tomiyasu makes it interesting, even though I still feel like Tierney is so unlucky. We're pretty stacked in fullback positions. We look good. What do you guys think? How are you guys feeling about, next game against Leeds? Does Tomiyasu continue to start, or do you bring Tierney back in, or are you hoping that Zinchenko is fit? It's interesting. Zinchenko is quite injury prone, but we're not really feeling it because, we have other players that can step up. So what are you guys thinking about that? iGamer says, iGamer black background makes seeing the heat map challenging. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me see if I can make it just the heat map. I don't know if you guys can see it, but that's it. That's it. It's all of that and then that big green spot. Nashville says Zinchenko, if he is ready, gives us more possession against teams like Leeds. Lynn says, Jess, I think we will be more like Man City. MC Arteta is trying to recruit players similar to Man City because Arteta has always coached this style of football. So I do kind of agree, but I think we're way more direct than Man City is. I think we have a lot more similarities to Liverpool than people can see. Liverpool in their pump. I think we're a fusion of the two because I don't think we're as tippy-tappy as they are all the time. But I totally understand what you're saying, and I think in terms of the principles, we do a lot of things like Man City, but I think the way that we're building and how we kind of moneyball our moneyball philosophy, we don't spend a lot. Like, we do spend, but we don't buy 100 million-pound players. It's like good value for money. I think that's very Liverpool as well. So I get what you're saying though. Deb M says, with Leeds high pressing, I think KT at left back. Bendover says, Tommy left side of center back. Let me read some of these super chats that came through. The True Says Free says, in the chat, I said, do you know who I am? Meaning I'm only here to support, not fight with trolls anymore. I wasn't saying I'm special. I'm not. Thank you for that super chat. I have 6 black men and 12 white men in my family, and my ex-wife is Jewish. I came online to fight against racism, to be honest, but I haven't found it. Just tons of sexism towards women so far. Racism is the devil. There's a lot of crazy stuff like on the internet. It's very prevalent on here. You know, I don't, why can't we get along? Latte says, Kaz, the Irish guy, is terrible and unreasonable. Great job, Jess, and great stream and analysis. Thank you so much. People are so crazy these days. Like, I don't get it. We're talking about football, you know, but people, it has to get personal. And I get why, but like, let's just be normal. So, yeah, let's see. Alistair says, I am surprised that no one has mentioned the dummy by Gabrielle that led to Saka's goal. Even Saka looks surprised that the ball reached him. I did mention it when we spoke about it earlier, but I think Gabrielle really was trying to make up for his mistake. And I think that's why I love Gabrielle is I think he makes mistakes, but he means so well. And the best example or the best comparison that Clive from Arsenal Vision could have given was Martin Keown. You know, you need a Martin Keown and an Adams together. I don't think you can have two of the same types of players. I do think bringing Gabriel out of the firing line may give him some time to, you know, relax and kind of focus and not feel with that pressure. But I still I still think Gabrielle is a really, really good player. Michael says, save Tierney or Zinni for Leeds and then let Tommy play against Bodo Glimt. No way we let Tierney injure himself on that AstroTurf. Exactly. Um, let's see. Alex says, can we just admire how we played 4 center backs as the back line versus Liverpool? Something so satisfying about that. I like that. I like that, you know, we have so many different options now, like in terms of our fullbacks, so we can be really flexible. I think we need more of that across the team, but I love it. Like, I love it so much. And the one thing I feel really confident about is those fullbacks because I think they're all really good, except for Cedric. Um, Maverick says, strength and depth. I think he's got to rotate the squad a bit for Leeds game, maybe give a rest a bit. We've got a loaded schedule this month. I think he'll still like really rotate against Bodo Glimt away from home. And then we'll see what happens against Leeds. But if Zinchenko is fit, I think he'll play. But I really want to see Tierney play in a Premier League game. I think it's just because like I love him so much and I'm like, when is he going to get a chance to play? But as long as we win, that's the most important thing. But yeah, if Zinchenko is fit, I feel like he'll play, but we'll see. Gunnar Thab says, our team is so versatile. We are versatile. Crispy Rice says the diversity is amazing. It is amazing. Bob Fondo says, Tommy for left side of center back. I think Gabriel needs a rest. I agree. iGamer says, imagine finding out you got divorced on a stream. Wait, what's going on? What happened? Hold on. Who got divorced on a stream? Did I miss something? You guys tell me what happened. No more toxicity, says Crispy Rice. EK says, do you agree we match up better against City than Liverpool? Hence why we have been more competitive in games against them than Liverpool in recent years. Using the boxing analogy styles make fights. I think we struggle with the physical aspects of how Liverpool play. So I think there were moments in that game where I felt like we were being overrun in midfield by Thiago and Henderson and, Jota just because we had Odegaard in there that wasn't really up for it the way that he's just not a very physical player, and Xhaka that was getting a little bit lost in there. I didn't really see him in there making he wasn't really as, like, in there, winning those second balls and stuff like that. So, yeah, I do think that we in the past haven't matched up as well to Liverpool, but I think those are changing because we're becoming first of all, our players are getting older and they're maturing. Saka and Martinelli are no longer pushovers, and we also have a striker that's not afraid to get stuck in. I think having strikers that weren't willing to get into the mix with Matip and Virgil van Dijk and just took a day off hurt us massively. And then but that's changing because obviously the boys are maturing and our backline can definitely handle the physicality and the speed of like Salah. Mane, we didn't really get to see the Mane test, but Luis Diaz is a good player. So I think those are the reasons why Liverpool is so hard for us to match up with against Man City because nobody's really that physical and it's two teams that are kind of like want to tippy tap around each other. Yeah, I do think we may match up a little bit better against them because we do have some athletes, that can make it a little bit more of a P and P type of game. But we'll have to see because I think we matched up with Liverpool well this time around. Be interesting to see how we are against Man City when they have a different type of threat up front because we haven't seen Holland before. And I think that's going to make it really different. Oh, I said ex-wife. I'm sorry. You said you said my ex-wife. I'm married 16 years to my hero, never divorced. Um, I'm gonna get in trouble. My bad. I read that wrong. I really do apologize for that. Let's see. Bendover said, "Would you give Fabio his first start against Leeds?" Hmm. Would I? Maybe. I mean, it depends on what happens against Bodo Glimt because I think Fabio Vieira will start then, and then will that give Odegaard enough time to rest? I think Leeds is gonna be is I think Leeds is the type of team that Odegaard could do really well against. So I'm saying maybe, but it depends on how well Vieira does against Bodo Glimt. Um, but I would say I'm mostly interested to see what we'll do in the fullback positions. I think those are more up in the air than that because I think it's kind of clear right now that Fabio Vieira is kind of like the Europa League guy and Odegaard is the, league guy, but we'll see. If Fabio Vieira is in the team, I wouldn't be upset because I think he's really, really good, and that's all that matters. Um, let's see. Gunnar King said, "I'd rather play Vieira versus Bodo Glimt. We can't disrespect Leeds. They beat Chelsea at home." Yeah, they're gonna try to run around us and stuff like that. So yeah, we have to make sure that we're up to it for Leeds. They're not under pressure per se, but they haven't been performing as well as they probably should. So, they'll probably try to take advantage of a tired Arsenal if that's what they think we are. So yeah, we have to be careful there. Um, Lionide says, "Can Vieira cover 12 kilometers distance in the number 10 position?" I don't know. I don't know. That's Odegaard does do a lot of running, and it's not an underrated thing. Like his running makes him the type of player he's like he has that engine. He can keep going, keep going, keep going, and he does a lot of pressing. He didn't do a lot of pressing in this game. I think that was on purpose. But yeah, like I'm not sure if Vieira can do the same thing, but yeah, there's definitely differences between those two players. Latte says Fabio started against Brentford, but that was because Odegaard was injured. But yeah, I get what you're saying. If you're saying that's not his first, that wouldn't be his first start. Yeah. But Odegaard was injured. SM3 says Vieira is more direct though. He is more direct. There were times in this game against Liverpool where I thought Odegaard needed to take a shot, and then the one time that he took a shot, I just thought, "Could you not have slid it into Saka?" So those things do frustrate me about him. Um, Amira says, "All that KT versus Zinni talk before the game sure was worth it. Great to see we have that unpredictability with Tommy, someone whose level doesn't drop just because he's not playing his primary position." I think those are the best things about the players is seeing that no matter if they're starting or not, they seem to be bought in and not have an attitude because they're not playing. Tomiyasu, Kieran Tierney are good examples of it. I think Eddie and Nketiah is a great example of it. Hold on, you guys, this is important. Yeah. Eddie and Nketiah um is a good example of it, and hopefully that continues. Fabio Vieira as well. Let's see. James Bond says that shot he took should have been a pass to Saka for real. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. I was like, why did you not pass that time? Crispy Rice says, when I saw Tommy was playing, I wasn't concerned at all. Yeah, he's so good. O'Malley says, interested to see Sambi's progression in the Europa League. We really need him to start bossing Europa League games. We spoke about it the other day. I do think that Sambi looks a little bit like somebody who's cruising, and I don't see enough of like I should be starting. And I know he's never going to start over Thomas Partey if Partey is fit, but what if there is a game? Like, what if we're playing against Nottingham Forest at the end of this month, which we are, and it's at home, and we want to rest Thomas Partey? Because I think we play like Chelsea the next weekend. Wouldn't it be nice if you could trust Sambi to play that game? But you're not going to get that start if you're not overperforming in the Europa League. And I think Fabio Vieira overperforming. Tierney overperforming, Tomiyasu overperforming, and Nketiah giving his best so that if there is a chance, they can get it. But I just feel like Sambi feels like a cruiser, and that's just like I may be projecting, but I want to see him do more, much more. Um, Inserter 400 says Arsenal look good to win a domestic trophy. I was thinking about this today. I was like, I really want us to win the FA Cup. It's like the way that we went out last season, just it didn't sit right with me. It would be amazing to win some domestic trophy, but really the main thing is making sure that we get into the top four. I hate when people text me and I'm doing things. Sin says, I think it's already clear that Arteta trusts Vieira. Yeah, I think that's true. Jack says, Arsenal look good to win the league, you mean? I don't know about all that. I don't know that. Sin says, yeah, I think he already trusts Vieira. I agree. Richie Rabbit says, Sambi's not the guy you want to go to war with. It's a good point. I just want him to run fast, you know? Junior says it would be nice if Arsenal was to win this season's Europa and Real Madrid to win the season's Champions League. Well, if we're not in the Champions League, for me, I don't really care who wins it. But I mean, unless it's like one of our rivals. But yeah, it would be nice for us to win the Europa League. But we know how difficult that competition has been to win over the years. It's difficult to be in two competitions at once. And if we could get to the end, and this is why it's so important to build up these points now, because who knows what's going to happen after the World Cup. And at a certain point, we could probably be in a really good position where we can focus on the Europa League and make sure that we can play strong lineups because we've done really well in the league. Basically, if we're not in a position where we're just barely hanging on to top four, we might be able to do a little bit more in Europa. And so that's really important. And it starts now. It's not about just the games that we play later on in the season. It's building up these points now is really, really important. Adagua says Fabio needs to start against Leeds. He's more direct and can shoot from distance. Well, we'll see. You know, we'll see what happens there. Yo-Yo says cruising is an adept turn. Adept term. He needs to seize the opportunities. Fair enough. I agree with that. You are not wrong. The Truth Sets Free says, why can't Odegaard hit the corners? In practice, I would have him hit the side net and top corners every time. He probably does, though. Like, that's the thing is people thought that Thomas Partey couldn't make that shot, but he makes it all the time in practice. He probably is hitting those in practice or in training, and it's just not coming off in the games because it's a much different scenario. And I think it is in the back of his mind that he needs to be scoring goals and getting assists. Now he did get an assist in this game, but more goals would be great. And so, yeah, I'm sure that he does hit them in training, but it's so different in real life. And I think it's just about him making the right decisions at the right time. Because the shots that he takes aren't necessarily good looks, but then when he could have just slotted into Saka, he didn't do it, and so I think it might be in the back of his mind. Gunner King says, "We've got our fear factor back. Teams are fearing, hating, and respecting us in leaps and bounds now. We need that back. We needed that back." I agree 100%. Anike says, "Vieira scores Odegaard's chance yesterday. If I speak. If I speak." Nav R says, "One thing I'm going to say is if Odegaard wasn't playing, we wouldn't have had that first half Martinelli goal and it would have been a draw. Yeah, he should have shot, but he did play well the first half. I thought off the ball, he left some to be desired, but you're right, on the ball, he was good yesterday. And he just needs to, I think, back himself a little bit more to take the shot." Um, Alex says, What the hell is going on with Aubameyang? He is bad mouthing Mikel for his own fault. I mean, he was not scoring goals and he was missing sitters." Yeah, I wanted to touch on this just before we get out of here. That Aubameyang obviously came out today and said that that was an old video from like right when he signed for Barcelona, and he was speaking about it, whatever, whatever. I can understand that, but I still have a problem with what he said. Even though time has passed, when he said it the first time, because this is not the first time that he's alluded to this or said something like this. I think it's just more shocking that it felt like he said it now after all this time. For me, I just feel like pretending as though that everybody is weak and a follower or whatever that's at Arsenal now, and Arteta just couldn't deal with big personalities. I did feel like that for a period of time with Arteta, and I do feel like he wants players that follow the directions, and when you're starting something new, you have to be a lot more strict than you probably would be, and so you can't have any people that are coloring outside the lines because it sets a bad precedent, and there's so many young players, and you don't want them sponging off of him. And so I think with this, it's Arteta did the right thing, and whether, we suffered from it because we didn't have him at the latter stages of last season, for the greater good, for the long-term vision of what we're trying to do, it was the right thing to do. Because as the captain, you need to be following the instructions. You need to be the first one at training. You need to set example. And when you hear the stories of what Xhaka and Gabrielle Jesus and Odegaard are doing with the team and how we're playing, you cannot deny that we needed a better presence wearing the captain's armband. We needed leaders in this team. And he did kind of become expendable once he stopped scoring goals. Aubameyang was probably getting away with it a lot more because he was somebody that was scoring goals for us. But once he stopped scoring goals, it was like, okay, well then what's the point? And so I think he may feel like it's just because Arteta can't deal with big personalities, but I think what it really is that Arteta doesn't want people around that aren't gonna buy into the culture, and some people like that and some people don't. But again, Aubameyang also, you're not Ronaldo. Like, you're not Ronaldo, you're not, Benzema, you're not some person you're not world class, like, you're an elite goal scorer at a certain point, and you stop scoring, and so this whole big player, big guy, you're not really that guy. And so this was what was best for the long term. Maybe there's a way that we could have smoothed it over, but I think the way that Aubameyang is, and we know he's like this because we've heard this before, he's done it at past clubs with the young players that we have around, like it wouldn't have set the right precedent. And so I get what he's trying to say, but it really just comes down to it that you weren't doing what you were supposed to, like, and Arteta wasn't with it. And because he's a young and inexperienced manager, you thought that he should just let you do what you wanted to do, and that's just not how things work. And so, yeah, I can I can accept that that was an old message that he doesn't really feel like that now, or he felt like it, but it's not like he put it out now. But it's just like, couldn't you just have come at on time? Like, was it that hard? Like, could you just follow the directions? Like, did you have to be so contrary all the time? Like, come on. So, yeah, it does, I'm not gonna lose any sleep over this. Aubameyang is doing his thing. He's at Chelsea now. Focus on that. We're focusing on us. You know, and it is what it is, but there's no reason really to drag this up or lose any sleep over it or be upset about it because 'cause we're playing well, and that's the most important thing is that it feels like we did the right thing, regardless, and so, yeah, Aubameyang, I wish you well, but you're not that guy. You were never that guy. Ify says, "My issue was us not getting a temporary striker when he left, but that's in the past. We move." I think a lot of people felt that way. Richie Rabbit says, "Aubameyang is a bougie decadent?" Does that mean a luxury? Blaze says, "Aubameyang also praised Saka and Martinelli in that interview." That's good. He should. Yo-Yo said, "What did he say?" It's just basically like Arteta can't deal with big personalities and needed young players that would just listen to what he said. That's basically what he said. Amira said it was more offensive to our current players than Arteta, to be honest. The same young players that carried us when he thought when he couldn't give a shit. Yeah. No, I think to say like he just needed young players, Partey and Xhaka are not young, but they just fell in line and wanted to be here and wanted to be a part of the project, and you wanted to do your own thing, so, um, like, no. Like, it's yuck. It just is what it is, really. Um, Yo-Yo says, "That's what matters most. There should be no looking backwards on decisions, have to move forward." I agree. So, yeah, I think, I am a very happy girl. Um, I've really enjoyed the show. I've enjoyed you guys again. I know that there was, if you guys want to talk to me about anything, you guys know you can DM me at any time. You got anybody that's been here knows what I'm talking about. I appreciate all of your guys' support, all of your super chats, all of that kind of stuff. It's amazing to see your guys supporting. You guys are always here for me. Rain or shine, win or lose, whatever. And I will talk to you guys on Wednesday so that we can talk about um our game on Thursday against Bodo Glimt. Yeah, I love you guys. Bye y'all. Like and subscribe.